we're back with another marketing chat and excited to talk to our audience today about influencer marketing, and particularly influencer marketing within the financial services industry. So with that, just go ahead and dive in. So what or who is an influencer? And at its very basic definition, it is a person that is influencing another. So if we think back, like influencers just been around due to social media, I don't think that's personally the case. I think if you kind of look at the timeline of influencers, we can track it back to the Mary Kays and the Tupperware parties of the world, right? And those are really people who had a strong network, who are extroverts, who are getting out there and making those sales. Today, it's a little less boots on the ground and more via social media.
I think you covered it. It's just that simple. Let's jump into what is influencer marketing.
Yeah. So at the most basic level, it is a collaborative process between a firm and an influencer. So for instance, maybe you're a firm and another content creator, and you guys collaborating to either build awareness just about your brand in general, like, hey, we're out here, think about us. Or maybe it's around a particular product launch, right? Like we just launched this ETF and now we want to get the word out there so that anyone from an institution or individual investor can know about us and hear about us and think about our product when they're going to invest next. In essence, influencer marketing is just hiring someone, an external source, to talk about your brand or to talk about your product.
Yeah. And I think the influencer marketing channel, it's definitely become a integral part of marketing campaigns, given the environment that we're in right now as far as the digital and social media age. That's why it's becoming such a big marketing point, let's say, for campaigns and awareness and the ability to reach different communities of people, different audiences, expand that brand awareness, and really tap into exposure that you wouldn't have been able to if you weren't engaging with influencers.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think also, one of the main components as to why you should be doing influencer marketing is that at the end of the day, people are buying from people. People are not buying from companies. Since 2019, marketing has more than doubled on the strength of platforms such as Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. Those are stats based more on the US than global. But clearly influencer marketing is on the rise. It's growing. And the market, it's valued at $21 billion.
Yeah, and it's really not surprising because, like, when you're in school, it's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Kids are literally like, I want to be an influencer. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So these stats are like very unsurprising.
We're in this interesting place within like the marketing world right now where like boomers and millennials were used to seeing an ad on TV and that would just be enough. But after millennials, Gen Z, they didn't really grow up with all those ads, and they need more to really kind of get them across the line. And that's where social media and that's where the influencer and like the human component of your selling is really going to come from. So,
and I think that's an interesting point too, where you're kind of like making the comparison between, let's say, advertisement and influencer, like commercials versus influencer. Like, we're at a place right now where we're seeing the importance of influencer marketing and influencers emerge, because this isn't necessarily an ad, but the difference is that this is an ongoing cultural movement and environment that these people are creating for their followers, for their network. They're really pouring into their audience on a daily basis, communicating value to their audience. So it's really like an ongoing thing that makes it way different than I just saw a commercial for this or I just saw an ad for this. Like, this is where we're going to really start to get into the importance of having influencers be a part of marketing.
I think that's absolutely spot on. Whether you're on social media as a firm and you're using influencers or not, that social media marketing, which is including influencer marketing in this conversation, is really about building a community, right? But it needs to continue to be this conversation and shouldn't just be this one, I think what you're saying, this one plug, right? Like this one ad. And I know we're going to get into later kind of, what and how this could potentially look like and kind of what to kind of keep in mind when you are going to potentially engage with someone who's going to be representing your brand. But influencer marketing is not just for makeup, right? 70, almost 80% of Americans, of Gen Z and millennials only, have gotten financial advice from social media in the story of, we can't sell financial products online. Financial products are not, like, you can't do social selling. That's not the case whatsoever.
Didn't you have some information on like the finfluencer?
Oh, the finfluencer? Yeah.
That's been growing. That's been like a growing segment as well.
Yeah. So influencers within the financial industry space are referred to as finfluencers. That is the official term of an influencer within the FinServe space.
Have you been finfluenced before, Kat?
A little bit. I think, when a couple months ago, we were talking about these two girls who left Goldman and started their own investment app.
So good. Alinea,
I think, yeah.
Alinea Invest.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have some really good content out there, for sure.
They do, and it's just authentic, and it's lo-fi, and I think it's just really reaching the right audience, especially on TikTok. But in as far as beauty products, hell yeah, I'm influenced daily. But that's also like a $5 investment or like a $20 investment versus, investing in a product, which I think also touches on the fact that being a financial influencer is very emotional. And this is again where the community comes in, because investing is very personal, very emotional. What about you? Are you seeing stuff that you're like, oh?
I've definitely been, I would say, finfluenced to a certain extent. There are times even being in this space around ETFs, launching ETFs, ETF distribution, and different products that I work with on a daily basis. But, still, I'm definitely on TikTok. What's the best bond ETF to be investing in right now, given the interest rate environment? That information I'm not getting from, your fixed income newsletter that comes through. I'm going to TikTok, seeing what people are talking about.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that I made financial decisions around what I've seen on TikTok necessarily, but that is definitely where I start the research process for sure.
Yeah. Which again, says it before, it's not just one engagement with the influencer, right? Because to your point, and I think a lot of investors are thinking this way too, the likelihood of someone just seeing one post, right, or one influencer talk, it's likely not going to move the needle right away. So why don't we, on that note, why don't we dive into, how and when to use an influencer and what that should kind of look like top level.
At a high level, where influencers fit into marketing campaigns will depend on your growth objectives and goals. So those have to be aligned. If you have specific KPIs around acquisition, conversion, you'll want to see that audience engaged pretty quickly. And so that will be influencers and farther down the marketing funnel, if you will.
Right.
That would be more the conversion side. That would be more on the bottom of the funnel, where you're really more interested in seeing leads convert.
Right.
So
You warmed up. Your audience is already warmed up. They know about you. Maybe they're, subscribed to your newsletter. You've seen them on a webcast. And now at this point, make a move. Yeah, I think that's great. And I would just say the other end of that is if it's simply for awareness, right? Maybe, we talked about Rex Shares doing some influencer marketing with YouTubers on the day of one of their launches. And that was really more for awareness, right? And to kind of get a pulse check, because through doing so, right, you're now getting comments from people. How does this bit differ from ticker ABCD that is like the competitor of the fund that the influencers are talking about, right? And those metrics are going to be more, what was our reach, what were our impression, and like what kind of feedback are we getting in these comments, so that we can take those comments and turn it into content to address either the highlights or the pain points. So yeah, really, no matter where you are in the funnel, it can be the right answer for you. You need to think about it as testing versus investing, especially your first couple times around. And maybe you can kind of touch on, what testing looks like and what you can kind of keep in mind when trying to see, like, is this a potential marketing strategy or component or tactic of our marketing strategy that we want to continue to kind of plug and play, throughout the year.
Yeah, like we kind of had a conversation of, is it too early? But it's so true about the testing aspect of it. Regardless of when you get an influencer involved in your marketing campaigns, you're gonna get feedback that's going to inform you one way or the other.
Right.
And, I think that's what we've been seeing. These firms kind of, maybe it is a little premature. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe the influencer was wrong for the scenario. And you're not seeing like a ton of engagement, let's say, necessarily right off the bat. And again, that probably goes back to like what influencer are you using?
Right.
What channels did you target with that specific influencer? But again, the feedback you're going to get regardless in the comment section, or kind of more vanity metrics around like likes or whatever it may be, you're going to start to get that feedback no matter what. So
yeah, your audience sentiment, just kind of testing the pulse there. The only other thing I would say here is that please don't spend thousands and thousands of dollars on one or two tweets or one or two posts. Like, that's really it's not going to do anything for you. So let's just be intentional and realize that influencers are really like the cherry on top to your marketing sundae, and that this is not going to, one or two posts or one or two tweets is really not going to move the needle. Unless you've hired like Kylie Jenner to push your product. Sure, maybe.
Yeah. Well,
tell her I say hi.
To that, as that thought around like when you are looking into where you want to post or what influencer you want to use, like thinking of that being that long-term partnership, collaborative relationship, the potential for that. And if the potential for that is on the higher end, then that's where you want to be, because you really got to think about, okay, how can this really be integrated into a full kind of partnership campaign?
Right. So I think just like anything else, any other marketing strategy that you are going to potentially implement, making sure that it's going to align with the overall business objectives, and that it also fits into your, your marketing strategy or campaign for that quarter or for that month. Right. And so once you kind of figure out where the influencer could potentially plug into your current strategy, from there, this is kind of where the research comes in. And there's definitely agencies out there who, handle these creatives, who handle these influencers. So whether you go through them or not, I would still do your due diligence of figuring out, does this person align with my brand? right? Do they align with my firm? You know, an extreme example, maybe they're extremely right wing and like anti ESG, and you have an ESG product that you're trying to push. Like, obviously, that is not a good fit, right? So, really doing your market research and spending the time to go through all their content after you hire them, continuing to do that work. Um, and if you don't, then you risk, having misalignment, right? And having that misalignment being publicly shown.
Yeah, definitely. I think deciding what kind of influencer you're targeting, the mega or macro influencer category, or the category of these kind of like micro or nano influencers. And I will say that, at least from what I'm seeing as far as looking into a good fit and best practices, let's say when we're doing research on what influencer to work with, this misconception with firms that they think there's a direct correlation between potentially the amount of followers and the amount of conversions you're going to get. And this huge amount of followers with these macro and mega influencers really doesn't necessarily mean that their audience is primed to buy your product. So for, the bigger channels, you'll be spending, whatever amount for all these views because, that's essentially what you're going to get with these mega and macro. You're going to get a ton of views, but they're not going to be relevant to the actual follower base. And you're not going to see those conversions. The conversions will more often happen on the micro and nano influencer kind of tier. And that's where I think more engagement's going to happen, mostly because you're really able to find that niche topic space. So within micro and nano influencers, you're going to find that they're more niche oriented. And so that's probably one of the bigger items when you're looking for influencers, to say like, okay, what is their niche topic? How are they oriented in that way? You gave the example of ESG. Is this influencer kind of more on the pro ESG side, or do they have like a few thousand followers that are, you definitely know that they are in ESG?
Yeah.
I mean, those are the kind of things that are going to make the difference when you're partnering with these influencers. Really, when you're wanting to resonate with an audience very deeply and expand your reach into different communities very thoughtfully and meaningfully, you're going to do that on the micro and nano influencer side.
That I couldn't agree more. And I was thinking, mostly so because let's say the campaign ends, right? And you're going through your data. Me personally, I would then go follow all these people, right? And so if you are doing the more focused and I don't know if localized is the word, but like localized efforts in a sense, even though it's all digital. Not only are you going to probably see better results, but it's going to be easier for you to then like follow these people and get to know them.
Yeah. And another point in that regard, there may be a situation where you find an influencer that is already using your product or service. That initial connection point with the influencer to be able to make sure that the message is delivered to their audience in a way that you can trust, and that's going to build more credibility with that audience you're trying to reach. So I think when it comes to actually building a partnership and working with these influencers, this idea of partnering with influencers is so important to be able to really get that that message across and your message across in a way that's going to be very authentic and build your brand credibility, right? So one thing that is going to be really at the center of this partnership, I think, with influencers is this idea of um, providing creative freedom to these influencers.
Right.
At the end of the day, they are creatives. They are content creators. They are just in that creative space. So if you're giving them a script, or if you're giving them something to like that really narrows that scope of what they can do creatively, the message is going to get lost. They're not going to be able to reach their audience in an organic and authentic way with your product or service message. Every brand has their goals, and every brand has the message they want conveyed, but it's important to give, the influencer that creative freedom. And they're the one that knows their audience. They're the ones that are engaging and interacting with their audience on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. So it can't be something scripted. Audiences like that are going to be able to really pick up on that inauthenticity very quickly.
100%.
So you want to be able to give them that flexibility.
100%. You should not be writing the script. And I would say if it gets to the point where you have written the script, or you've literally provided step-by-step instructions, to me, that signifies that this is not a good fit.
Yep. So do we want to kind of dive into some recent kind of compliance issues that have come up with influencer, because this space is so highly regulated? That's always going to be a factor when we're talking about different marketing tactics and different kind of innovative ways to enhance marketing and distribution efforts.
Yeah, you just said, it's marketing initiatives are always going to need compliance review, whether that is for your fact sheet or for your website, for your conference materials, whatever. This, even though it's in a different medium through an influencer, it's the same thing. Like, everything needs to be run through compliance to a certain extent. We're kind of go through the different check marks of what needs to be done leading up to this process. And I think because this is new for so many different firms, and because with compliance and legal, there's this human aspect, right? So one compliance officer could be more strict than the next, or can vary from firm to firm. Just making sure that you are keeping the lines of communication open with compliance, and, figuring out what does this process actually look like to get approved, and to make sure that we are compliant. Because what it was like last week or 2 weeks ago, the announcement or the press release around VanEck, like a 15C or part of 15C,
not disclosing
correct,
that they were, engaged with an influencer.
Right. And so, and again, like, I don't talk about that, and we're like, is it going to discourage, other firms and maybe the smaller guys, right? But I think at the end of the day, it's just like any new process or system that you put in place. There's going to be speed bumps, and someone dropped the ball here. It's as simple as that. Someone just didn't fully or correctly disclose what they were doing. And once you kind of nail down the process, they shouldn't be happening. Just like you're not getting fined every time you forget, you're not getting fined, for the same mistakes that you potentially be fined on your fact sheet on day 1 versus like on day 5 or year 5, excuse me, day 5. Yeah, we're fast learners
here. I know. I think it's a really good indicator of, adoption for this type of marketing, and kind of learn from someone else's mistakes. I don't think VanEck is going to stop their efforts with using influencer marketing. They're going to pay their fine, and they're going to learn from this situation and continue to work that process. Just be transparent, disclose what you need to disclose, and keep it moving. Like, it's something that's going to really drive your business forward, grow your business, expand your brand, really continue to build that credibility and trust for your brand, for your firm. So I think it's a really positive uh, new marketing trend for financial services. I mean, it's really interesting to start to see marketing firms in this space start to provide services that are oriented towards influencer marketing now. I've personally seen different influencer marketing services be priced out for different distribution firms out there. So it's really interesting to start to see like where all of this is getting its start, and how everyone's going to really just find a good, natural, organic way of integrating this into their marketing and distribution strategies. So
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Definitely couldn't agree more. I don't think it's going anywhere. And if I was an ETF manager, I would definitely be considering and looking into